Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today because we have some very exciting General Hospital news to talk about, and it's definitely worth the wait. I have to admit, the more I sit with everything Laura Wright shared, the more it lingers in my mind like one of those long afternoons where you just can't quite shake a feeling. Watching General Hospital lately hasn't felt light or easy. It feels heavy in a way that's almost personal, like I'm watching someone I care about slowly walk toward a mistake they can't take back. What really struck me is how clearly she explained Carly's heart. Not anger, not revenge, but pain. Real, deep, quiet pain. And the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. Because when a woman is hurting like that, she doesn't always choose what's right. She chooses what feels like relief in the moment. Holding on to Jack, someone steady but distant, while secretly keeping Valentine close, that doesn't come from confusion. That comes from longing. From wanting something to feel certain in a life that suddenly isn't. And I keep going back to that image in my head, Carly alone at night, everything quiet, no distractions, no brave face to put on. Just her thoughts. That feeling Laura described, wishing she could go back to a time before she knew all this, before she got pulled into something so complicated, that's the part that really stayed with me. Because life doesn't give you that option, does it? Once you know, you know. Once you cross a line, you can't pretend you didn't. Then there's Valentine. Oh, that situation is just trouble from every angle. Hiding a fugitive in your own home already feels like standing on the edge of something dangerous. But adding emotions into it, and even crossing that physical boundary, it changes everything. It's no longer just a secret. It becomes a betrayal waiting to be discovered. And I can almost feel that tension building, like the air right before a summer storm, thick and impossible to ignore. At the same time, I can't help but think about Jack. And in a strange way, I understand him too. From what Chris McKenna shared, and the way Laura described it, he's not pretending to be something he's not. He lives in a world where truth is always partial, always controlled. He even warns Carly that he can't give her everything. And still, she stays. That right there says so much about her heart. She's hoping for something different, even when all the signs are telling her otherwise. And that's what makes this whole story feel so real to me. It's not just about who loves who. It's about timing, choices, and the quiet risks people take when they're afraid of losing something or someone. Carly isn't just caught between two men. She's caught between who she wants to be and what she's already done. When Laura said that line about the train, I felt it settle deep. Knowing exactly where things are headed and still not being able to stop it, that's the kind of tension that keeps me glued to the screen. It's like watching something unfold in slow motion, hoping somehow it'll turn at the last second, even though deep down you know it won't. And I'll tell you honestly, it leaves me with that familiar feeling, one part worry, one part anticipation. The kind where you sit quietly after an episode ends, maybe with a warm drink in your hands, and just think about it all. Wondering how it's going to break, who it's going to hurt, and whether Carly will be able to pick up the pieces when it does. That's why I keep coming back. Because stories like this don't just entertain, they stay with you. Have to be honest, when I read everything Laura Wright shared about keeping viewers coming back, I didn't just read it and move on. I sat there for a long while, thinking about it, almost like turning it over in my mind the way you do with something that quietly means more than it first appears. Because when I watch General Hospital, I realize now I'm not just following a story, I'm responding to something that has been carefully built to hold my attention, my emotions, and even my routine. You know, there's something almost invisible about the way this show keeps you hooked. It's not always the big dramatic explosions or shocking twists, though. Those are certainly there. It's those very specific moments Laura talked about. That reaction from Carly after the phone call, that sudden shift where her voice carries fear and urgency, I can almost see it in my mind without even rewatching it. And what surprises me is how such a small moment can carry so much weight. It's like when you hear bad news in real life, there's always that 1 second where everything changes and you feel it before you even understand it. And hearing her explain that those moments are intentional, that really changed the way I look at things. Because now I realize they are not just telling a story, they are guiding us emotionally. They know exactly when to pause, when to push, when to leave us hanging, just enough so that we feel a quiet need to come back. Not forced, not pressured, just naturally drawn in. I find myself thinking about those commercial breaks you mentioned. It sounds like such a small detail, doesn't it? But it really isn't. Because in that short moment where the show could lose you, they instead give you a reason to stay. A look, a line, a question left unanswered. And I've felt that so many times without even realizing it. Sitting there, telling myself, I'll just step away for a minute, and then something happens, and I stay just a little longer. And then suddenly the episode is over, and I'm already thinking about the next one. What really touched me deeply is the way she spoke about Fridays. That old tradition of ending the week with something unresolved, something that lingers. I remember that feeling so clearly, carrying a storyline in your mind through the weekend, almost like it becomes part of your own thoughts. But now, as she said, the world is different. There isn't just one show to think about anymore. There are hundreds, maybe thousands. Life is louder, faster, more demanding. And yet here they are, trying to recreate that same feeling, not once a week, but every single day. That's the part that really made me stop and think, because that's not easy. That means every episode has to matter. Every scene has to carry something forward. Every emotional moment has to feel real enough that you don't just watch it, you remember it. And I can feel that effort when I watch. It doesn't feel lazy. It doesn't feel rushed. It feels intentional. And then there's something even more meaningful, something quieter but deeper. When she talked about the connection with fans over the years, I felt that in a very personal way, because this isn't just about entertainment anymore. This is about time, shared time. People have watched her grow, change, evolve, and at the same time, they've gone through their own lives. Families sitting together, generations watching the same characters, the same stories unfolding in different ways over the years. That kind of connection doesn't happen often anymore. Most things come and go so quickly, but this stays. I started thinking about how comforting that is, to turn on the television and see something familiar, to recognize faces, emotions, even patterns of storytelling that feel like home. And yet, at the same time, still be surprised, still be pulled in, still feel curious about what's next. And maybe that's why those carefully crafted moments matter so much, because they are not just there to keep ratings high or fill time. They are there to maintain that connection, to gently remind us, you still care about this. You still want to know. I find myself sometimes just sitting there after an episode ends, not rushing to do anything else. Just letting it settle, thinking about Carly, about her choices, about what might happen next. And in that moment, it doesn't feel like I'm watching a show. It feels like I'm reflecting on something real, something human. And honestly, in a world that feels like it's always moving too fast, having something that makes you slow down, feel, and come back the next day, that's something special. It really is. I have to tell you, when I sat down and really thought about this question, who played Carly Corinthos the best on General Hospital, I realized it's not as simple as picking one name. Oh no, it's one of those questions that stays with you, the kind that makes you lean back and think about different moments, different eras, and how each one made you feel in its own way. Now, when I think of Carly today, my mind naturally goes to Laura Wright. There's something very grounded about her version. I feel like she brings a kind of emotional maturity to Carly, like a woman who has lived, made mistakes, loved deeply, and carries all of that with her every single day. When I watch her, I don't just see drama, I see layers. Pain, strength, regret, hope, all sitting together. And I think that's why so many viewers, especially those who've been watching for years, feel comfortable with her. She feels familiar, steady, like someone you understand even when you don't agree with her choices. But then I can't ignore what Tamara Braun brought to the role. Oh my goodness, her Carly had fire, real fire. There was something raw and unpredictable about her. Like, You never quite knew what she would do next, but you couldn't look away. I remember thinking that her energy filled every scene. When she was angry, you felt it. When she was hurt, it came through just as strongly. Some fans say her era was exhausting, and I can understand that, but at the same time, there was a kind of intensity there that made the character unforgettable. And then there's Jennifer Bransford. I'll be honest, I've always felt a little sympathy when I think about her time in the role. From what many fans have said, she didn't really get a fair chance. Stepping into such a strong, established character right after another actress left, it's like being asked to continue a storm that's already in motion. That's not easy for anyone. And when I read those comments about how she was handled, I found myself nodding quietly. Sometimes it's not about talent, it's about timing, direction, and how the story supports you. What I find most interesting, though, is how fans respond differently depending on what they want from Carly. Some people miss that earlier version of her, the one who was almost like a villain you couldn't help but love. The kind of character who could make terrible choices, hurt people, stir up chaos, and still make you feel for her. That's not easy to write, and it's certainly not easy to play. But when it works, oh, it really works. Others, though, want something softer now. A little humor, a little warmth, something to balance all that intensity. I've seen people say they miss that lighter side, that sense that Carly could make you smile just as easily as she could break your heart, and I understand that too. Watching someone struggle all the time can be heavy, especially when you've been following them for years. And then there are those who look back and say, the very beginning of Carly's journey was the most powerful. That first year, when everything was new, messy, emotional, and a little dangerous, there's something special about a character when they first arrive, before life shapes them, before consequences settle in. That version of Carly had a kind of boldness that's hard to recreate later. So when I ask myself who played Carly the best, I find that I can't give just one answer, because each actress gave me something different. A different feeling, a different connection, a different version of the same woman. And maybe that's the real beauty of it. Carly isn't just one thing. She changes, she grows, she makes mistakes, learns, falls, gets back up again. And each actress, Laura Wright, Tamara Braun, Jennifer Bransford, helped shape that journey in her own way. So instead of choosing just one, I find myself appreciating them all, each for what they brought into my living room, into my thoughts, and into those quiet moments where I sit back and think, well, that was something, wasn't it? And somehow, after all these years, I'm still watching.